Welcome to My Hometown, the program that explores clubs, organizations, businesses, and issues across Nassau and Suffolk counties and sheds light on the different towns that are making a difference.
Hello and welcome to My Hometown. I'm Bill Horan, along with my co-host, Nassau Community College student, Stacy Rain.
Hey, Bill. You know that I'm new to town. I just moved here this past summer, and I'm learning about all the people here at WHPC. And so I want to learn quickly about you. Do you craft sew? Do you knit? Do you quilt by chance?
No to all of those questions.
Well, I also do not quilt, but I know that we found someone who actually loves it so much that she's made a unique business around it, and she's from right here in Nassau County.
That's right, Stacy. Our guest today is Jessica Alexandrakis. She is the founder of Life Under Quilts. Jessica, welcome to My Hometown on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hi, Bill and Stacy. Thanks for having me.
Tell us about yourself and how you learned to make quilts.
Oh, my goodness. I've lived here on Long Island for the last 15 years. I'm actually from the Midwest, but I'm very happy to be here. And I've been quilting since high school, going on about 30 years. And it's not something I ever thought I could do professionally, though that was kind of like the daydream, be a housewife and a professional quilter. Honestly, it's two jobs, a housewife and professional quilter. It's a lot. But I started quilting because we had quilts around us growing up. We had my great-grandmother's quilts, the fabric scraps that she used. They were still there for the kids to play with. And in high school, my cousin and I cut up Grandma's scraps and curtains and bed sheets and anything from the remnant bin at Joann Fabrics. And we sat there trying to be like any of the girls in the stories, Laura Ingalls Wilder, somebody out there with a home front, like a homestead out there in the wilderness, sewing to keep their family warm, sewing to make people happy to come home to have a beautiful bed cover that has pictures and other things that remind the family. You can tell stories from it. I love being able to put in stories and meaning into the quilts.
You can see that as you're answering the question, and now you're getting us into it, of course. Now it's like the beginning of a book. If I read the first page and I'm looking around Barnes & Noble, well, maybe 2 more pages, maybe 5 more pages. So, Stacey?
Oh, so give me an example of one of the stories that you've put into a quilt. I would love to hear that.
Well, I do have a series of travel quilts, and that's because when I was young and new to life, I guess, and then to Long Island and motherhood, I had a lot of time, and I was in a situation where I could travel frequently. And I found myself on a lot of planes and in airports and layovers and such, and in people's homes, as a guest. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be able to keep myself centered, to not have anxiety creep up. I mean, have you ever traveled on a plane with an anxious friend? Like you got those nail marks in your arm for hours after. But I found something that I knew was my center. I knew was my home, and I could come back to it over and over. And I started a technique called English paper piecing. It's a very old technique, but I started doing this on a flight to Japan. And I had 15 hours, and I wasn't going to sleep. So it's very... you can contain it in a pencil box, like a pencil case, and it has paper templates that you wrap fabric around, and then you use that to keep the shapes even when you piece the patchwork together, and it's really mindless. I mean, I think that's why I like it so much. It's almost like a form of meditation.
Yeah.
Right? And so a few stitches in, all your thoughts clear. It's good to do anywhere.
And then you can go back to that piece and look at it and be reminded of what you were... your travels.
Well, yes.
Cool.
So the series of travel quilts started as one on that trip to Japan. And then I had leftover fabric, so I made another for my bed.
Yeah.
And then I made another that I actually started writing on. And I wrote on every star where I was, the date, if there was some event. So while I was home visiting my parents in Chicago, and then it was my friend had a baby, and I commemorated that in the quilt. And that quilt ended up getting into my first book. So,
first book. Okay, we have questions about that soon. But you have this business, Life Under Quilts. So I'm so curious to know. Tell us about your business. Do you sell the quilts? What's this business about?
Oh, thanks for asking. The business is primarily focused on healthy domesticity. I want to teach people how to quilt. I also want to remind people that they need a healthy home, right? And that soft home decor not only personalizes your space, but, shares those stories. You might change out your throw pillows every few years, but you're not going to change out your quilt until it gets, worn out enough that you have to retire it.
That's true. In my family, we have quilts that must go back to the 1950s or 40s or 60s.
Oh, that's cool.
And I don't see anybody throwing out a quilt. It just doesn't seem to happen. There must be a rule. You can't throw out a quilt. It comes with the house.
We wish it would. But as a family, the potter or the knitter, do you save every one of your grandma's crafts that she gave you for Christmas? Sorry, Grandma, I didn't. But I still have the toll-painted doll bed. So the business is focused on teaching children basic sewing skills, all right,
cool.
and as well as adults, which you can get into more of the meditation aspects and then mental health.
That leads us right into the next question, so it's perfect. Thank you, and you didn't know this. But do you teach online? Do you teach in person? Both?
Oh, both, definitely. I love having a room of brand new quilters that don't know how to thread a needle. And I actually taught a group of 8-year-old girls a few months back, and they were scared of a real needle because all of the kids' craft sets come with this plastic and yarn, and you're not actually making anything worth keeping. So trying to instill, I guess, a love of objects to rebel against this disposable world where we change what we own as fast as it comes to us, And here you can not completely step away from that because fabric hoarding is a completely separate hobby.
Oh, I like that. That sounds really fabric hoarding. That sounds like a whole separate show we should do
my
someday.
roommates don't always like that.
Fabric hoarding.
Fabric hoarding, that's a good one. So my mom tried to teach me to sew when I was younger, and we abandoned it within the hour because I don't know, maybe we just didn't work well together. I'm not sure, but I love the idea of teaching kids because it's kind of sewing is a skill that we don't hang on to that much anymore. I mean, I can sew a button. I'm not sure if I sew it correctly, but I can do it.
Well, so. I'm grateful for all of the Nassau County educators that teach home ec and sewing. Both my kids have learned how to sew on buttons. So it is out there a little bit.
That's the reason I know is home ec.
Right? It's same like how kids these days don't have easily identifiable handwriting. Right? Like, Bill, if I looked at your notes, I could tell that's Bill's handwriting. And that's probably Stacy's handwriting. Yeah. Right? And at one point when you and I were kids, there might have been hearts over the eyes. Something like that.
Definitely.
I don't think kids have enough access to handmade anything for them to understand it enough to, they're so removed from writing, from reading handwriting, from holding things, from wearing things that other people made for them. And if we can remind people that objects don't have to be disposable, so it's worthwhile.
But you focus on quilts. So what would you say makes quilts different from just making any sort of blanket?
That's a good question. I didn't think of that, but what separates a quilt from a blanket?
All right. Now, if you think about the ones you have at home, most are probably one layer. But a quilt, to make it a quilt, it needs to have 3 layers. A patchwork or applique designed top, a layer of thin cotton or other sort of batting that's going to give it some loft, and then something on the backing. So you can see it's and
you're holding up for us, just for our audience who can't see that, you're holding up something. It almost looks like a picture frame size, and it says Life Under Quilts right on it.
Bill, this is a mini quilt.
A mini quilt, okay.
And so it has clips. It's a wall hanging, and I take this with when I vend at craft shows, and if I go to any lectures or classes. It's like a teaching tool, actually. But it's a quilt because it has the 3 bound layers and stitches that hold those layers together. Those are the quilting stitches. There are tons of ways to make quilts, lots of different blankets. But if it's made patchwork or applique with the 3 layers and some sort of stitching to hold it together, then it's a quilt.
You are listening to My Hometown on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Stacy Rain, here with Bill Horan, and today we're talking with Jessica Alexandrakis, the founder and owner of Life Under Quilts.
Jessica, if you can take us a little further, are there different, like when you're running a class, are there different types of quilts that people would start out with? Like first grade would be level 1 and then 2, 3, 4. And even when we get to the higher levels, like there's different types, sports cars, racing cars,
Exactly.
big tough cars to do for
Just
work.
like with any other hobby, any other industry, there are different angles at which you can come in, right? Maybe you come in because you love color or because you love design. Or for quilting, if you love math, the quilt is, it's a geometrical plane right there. So
I can't wait to tell my sister that. She's a math teacher.
exactly. If she wants to do a quilting lesson, I'm happy to give some ideas.
Now, Jessica, let me tell our audience and let you tell our audience, if someone is hearing this and said, oh, that's just what I was looking for, or it sounds so interesting, where would they go for this? To their local school? Is there a website? Is there a physical address that they go to?
You're welcome to get in touch with me, Jessica Alexandrakis. My website is lifeunderquilts.com. All right. You can Google me. I think I'm the only Jessica Alexandrakis out there. But you'll probably find the books that I wrote about 10 years ago, and then the website that will have my current events, any quilts for sale. Those days I don't usually sell them because nobody wants to pay that much for what goes into it.
Really?
But
Oh.
I would take a custom order. Mm-hmm. But for me to decide what you want in your house, it's so much more valuable and usually more profitable for me to just have you as a student, and you come back and we work together for a year. You get the quilt you want, and you spend the same amount of money.
Do people bring in old T-shirts? I've heard of that.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
Okay. Yeah.
There's a lot you can do with T-shirt quilts or any clothing fabric. Usually the natural ones, cotton, linen, those work the best. But if you have a loved one who's passed on, and you want to make a memento, a keepsake, maybe pillows for the grandchildren or the children, you can use regular clothing into quilted items.
Stacey, before the show, I was talking to Jessica and telling her, years ago, I went to the Amish country for a short weekend vacation, and I hit just the weekend. There was actually a quilters convention.
Oh.
I had no idea this was a separate division of the world or a subsection or a cult. I don't know what you'd call it. I'm not trying to know. But all over the place, every hotel had special rooms for quilters, license plate, I'm a quilter, quilters are us,
Wow.
quilter mom, things like this. So there's a lot more people out there than you might think. And as Jessica was saying, just like there's hunters, there's fisher people, men and women who fish, tennis players, pickleball players, I guess. There are quilters, and this is a subsection of people that this is their hobby. They really enjoy it. They have meetings, I guess, talk to other quilters and
We find
exchange
each other.
information. You find each other, yes.
The internet helped,
It's really an art form. I mean, I think quilting is very much an art form. Maybe one that you're going to keep going in in Nassau County, right?
Well, I definitely would like to teach everyone on Long Island how to quilt. All right, so please get in touch, lifeunderquilts.com.
Yeah.
But really, it's a skill anyone can learn. All right, it's something that it's not unattainable. And so I would like to be able to teach whoever wants to learn at any age. It's so much nicer to make something that's important to you than to teach you how to quilt so this to this to this, and look, now you have a block. I'm not just going to give you the steps. I'm also going to tell you how to include more meaning into it. Don't start piecing that 1,000-piece Minecraft quilt when he's 14, because he's probably going to grow out of it. Maybe I'm wrong, but you wouldn't believe the way people are able to personalize their quilts. And so it's art that's functional. It's useful.
Yeah.
And that way it's a
there-
lot better.
Are there any stories that you'd have to tell us about? Was there someone that you taught quilting to that you never expected, a man or woman came in, or a little girl or a little boy, and all of a sudden they just love quilting and they become, or is that the exception?
Well, Bill, you'd have to ask me which of the, 50 classes I've taught in the last so many years, which class, because every class has a student like that.
Really?
Every
Wow.
class has a student that doesn't think it's possible. She remembers her grandma's quilts. She wants to do something, or someone recommended it to her. And if it clicks, it just clicks. Just last week, I'm nearing the end of an 8-week program at the Bryant Library in Roslyn. And I had a wonderful group of women, but all 3 of them were brand new to quilting and to quilting by hand. So they spent hours over the course of 8 weeks to make, it's a laptop cover, actually. It's in my first book. And when they put the pieces together, in the very beginning, the first week, they could not imagine getting that far, like to the end of the project. And then to see the joy, the pride they take in themselves from just making this, 20 by 12 strip of patchwork fabric. That's all they've done. But they've accomplished a goal, right? Mm-hmm. They've learned new skills. They've gone from being stressed out about, oh, wait, I'm not folding it right, to it just coming automatically. Mm-hmm. Your hands learn the motion, and then that's where the stress relief starts coming in.
So you're quilting by hand. There's no machines. Are there machines? How do you do this?
Oh, machines, I do. There are many different techniques that you can use to make quilts. I like some techniques that are done by hand, like English paper piecing, and other techniques like free motion quilting, that just gives the quilt a different look. I also, and I'll hold up my little Life Under Quilt, mini quilt again, I like combining the techniques. So I hand pieced all these colorful hexagons along the side, right? But the entire thing is machine quilted on my domestic sewing machine. Okay. So if you have a sewing machine, but you haven't touched it since you made masks for lockdown, give me a call, get in touch, because another thing that I've been able to do on Long Island is help people learn how to use their sewing machine. If you have it and you don't know how it goes together, or you haven't touched it since somebody gave it to you years ago, a 2-hour session and you will be very confident, even, just a few hours through a month and a project to work on. I made a Mahjong tablecloth with one of my students this summer. I didn't know Mahjong tablecloths existed, but we looked it up. She had the machine. She knew what she wanted, and we put it together. And again, like, it's a student who just an ambitious beginner, I guess. So something like that.
It would seem to be very therapeutic, too, for people. Do you find that as a side benefit?
Well, if you look back at quilts through time, right, they're being made by people who don't really have any other choice. But still, they're giving that meditative stitching benefit when you go in and out of the fabric with the needle over and over, right? Or you're making swirls on your sewing machine. It gets very soothing, relaxing, and it helps through all of life's trials and hardships. I mean, if it's a miscarriage or divorce or loss of a sibling or parent, I've done a lot of self-healing and grief work through my own quilting, like for the losses that I've had. And I try to express that to others or to organize support groups. But, death doesn't sell very well. So
you have the best names for mystery books. Death doesn't sell.
No,
Life Under Quilts. You should be, what is it, Agatha Christie, or even you do the covers or team up with someone who does the writing. Yeah, they can do the words.
I'll put the quilt patterns in the back.
But it's the cover that sells. When I see a cover on a book, that's what first draws me in. If it's bland or doesn't have a catchword, I see something interesting. I look at the first page, and usually that first page, if it either has a town or something I relate to, a puppy or a dog or something, then I go to the second page and the third page. You'd be great at that. I think you have a side hustle. I think
Thank
it's called.
you,
Bill. Right?
Thank you, Bill.
She said she's written, I think you said, a couple of books.
Yes, I did.
Were they mystery books or were they quilting books?
You guys are silly. No, they were how-to books on quilting techniques.
Wow.
You couldn't work a mystery in there, like somebody kills the quilter?
Have you ever worked with a publishing company? Okay, no.
No.
My editor was like, no, sorry. I'm like, I can't describe how to make this piece in only 9 photos. She's like, well, 9 photos fit on the page. So that's what you got. But both books were a challenge, a personal triumph for me. And the fact that they're both available worldwide, translated in 8 languages, that's what I'm most proud of in life after my children.
Yeah.
Right. So I love having had that experience. It's been great. And I like that quilts will be out there again at another level. Somebody's basement, garage sale, whatever, they'll find one 20 years from now and somebody will start quilting. You never know who you're going to inspire.
You are listening to My Hometown on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Stacey Rain, here with Bill Horan, and today we're talking with Jessica Alexandrakis, the founder and owner of Life Under Quilts.
Now, Jessica, you've got people interested in this, and even without the mystery part of it or a murder or something, where would they find some examples of your work, or they could learn more about this or see, what is she talking about? I remember a quilt, or Grandma had a quilt or something, but where would they find your work?
My work is posted on my website, lifeunderquilts.com. I'm also available on social media. Check me out on YouTube for how-to videos.
Wow.
There are a lot of long-form, like 10-minute to hour-long videos just from above. So you can see my hands going into the fabric. And I make those for the students that I teach online. Because then after class, they can go back and watch again and again. So, yes, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, the usual.
They're all over. And you go out and give talks, so if there's an organization?
Yes. Mostly I do in-person events through the public libraries in Nassau County. So I've got a monthly gig in Uniondale. If you want to come see me coming up, it's usually the first Monday of the month from 11 to 1. There will be one October, November, and December. It's called Learn to Sew. If you go to the Uniondale Library website, you can look that up. If your library is interested in having quilt classes, they can get in touch with me. The phone number is 508-324-5338. Call or text. And you can also find me on the website, lifeunderquilts.com.
And so you're teaching quilting and sewing.
I will teach whatever my skills allow, really. I mean, I also teach English as a second language.
Oh, wow. And soon to be mystery books about quilting.
And mystery books about quilts. We're going to expand your universe by the time this show is over.
Well, I'm pretty sure I've expanded yours too, Bill. You didn't know quilters existed.
You're right. No, I did know they existed, but I didn't know all the information you're giving us, and it's fascinating. But that's the fun of the show. We both learn things. I certainly do, and I'm sure Stacy does too, because I didn't know all this about quilting and what it can do for people, and really how interesting. Is there one quilting adventure, either adventure or a quilt that you made that you're most proud of? Was it had to do with either your family or organization or?
That's a really tough question. I have finished over 100 quilts at this point, and started probably 100 more that are still sitting there waiting for their turn.
Okay.
It would probably be the travel quilt series, because those are all done with the English paper piecing technique. So it's all pieced by hand.
When you say a travel quilt, to us non-quilters, namely me, what does that mean? Does that mean it's just different countries?
I had talked about it a little bit earlier in the show, if you caught that, but I had the opportunity to travel a lot for a few years. And I would sew on the plane and sew in hotels and cafes and anywhere.
Oh, while traveling. You mean strictly while? Okay, I didn't get that part of it. I didn't know if you meant like when you were in England, you made something that would show the English countryside or in another country.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, yeah.
Oh my gosh, you guys don't know anything about quilting.
You're right. Okay. That's why we need you. We're desperate for you.
Okay, I'll break it down.
We're going to have to sign up for a class.
Yes. The English paper pieced quilts can be done on your lap. Actually, Bill, if you remember, I was working on one before you called me into the studio.
Right.
And therefore, it's really portable. And my first book, Quilting on the Go, English paper pieced quilts you can take anywhere. It's about packing a little travel kit to keep in your purse or your car. And then when you're stuck at the doctor's office or you're stuck with your kid wherever, at the soccer practice again, you can get a little bit of the quilt done. And so I made, I'm on travel quilt number 9 now. I've completed, I think, 4 or 5 of them. But these are big bed quilts that I pieced from 1-inch hexagons or 2-inch diamonds. And that's a small amount of fabric that you sew together over and over and over. So it makes a big, heavy, warm quilt because it has so many seams folded under. And so you have like an additional layer in there from the small patches.
You used the term that I don't know what it means in there, something like an English paper something?
Yes.
Now, does that mean paper the way we think of it, or is that something different, or do you slide pieces of paper in it, or what does that mean?
Now
really?
I wish we were actually visible, and doing a podcast or, something on YouTube so I could show you guys quilts.
Yeah.
But English paper piecing is a quilting technique.
Oh, okay.
We actually use paper, cardstock, cut into the shape of whatever you want to make, and you wrap the fabric around it so you don't have to measure, you don't have to look.
And Jessica, it just magically just pulls out what looks like a mini kit with everything you'd probably need for this, right?
To make the travel
So
quilt.
when I teach a hand sewing class, everybody in the class gets a kit like this.
Oh, nice.
They're going to get scissors and thread and the templates and a bit of fabric. And we'll sit there and in 1 or 2 hours, you can learn the technique. It's not that difficult. Now, to finish the whole bed quilt, it might take 7 years.
Okay.
That quilt, that travel kit looks so fun. It looks like something I would love to rummage around in. There's little squares of fabric and needles and all sorts of stuff in there.
Don't rummage too quickly. There are pins. All right. But
True.
this is the result of my 8 weeks with the class
that's
in
beautiful.
Roslyn.
And you're holding up something that looks about 30 inches, I would guess, that would look like it's not certainly big enough to be a quilt, but would you call that a
Going
mini?
that way, right?
Well, it's supposed to be a laptop case, to protect your
okay.
laptop when
Very
it's in your
cool.
bag.
It's
But I love
beautiful.
it so much, I might turn it into a Barbie quilt.
Oh, I love that. So getting in on the Barbie fandom right now, right?
Did you see the movie, Stacey?
I did twice.
5 times in the
Whoa,
theater.
okay.
And I bought it yesterday.
The soundtrack is so good too. I play at every show.
Right? So I'm actually going to teach a class on the Barbie movie. It's like a mini quilt reflection class. We're going to discuss the lyrics of several of the songs over 5 weeks, and everybody can make an item that's personal to them.
Wow.
Right? Because it's one thing for me to come in and teach you how to sew from the very beginning, very basic. But when you get to another level of the artistic expression, right, you want to be able to put your own thoughts into the fabric. And so my Barbie quilt says, I'm Kenuff. And I want to do another one that says men, men, men.
Yeah.
From the scene where they're like bumping fists after being at the gym.
Yeah.
Because you would never say that in real life.
Right.
But we all feel the communication that goes out from what's not said.
That's so cool that you're doing something around the Barbie movie. I love that.
Before we wrap up, once again, tell our audience where they can get in touch with you if they want to find one of your presentations or talks, and how and where you are on the internet.
My events list is on lifeunderquilts.com. All right. There you can scroll across the top, find the blog that gives a little more information about the upcoming classes. All right. If you want to take any of the virtual classes, you'll find a class pass in the shop. And that's how you would pay virtually to take my 10-week session or a 5-week session. Anytime that I'm showing up somewhere else at a library or another function or a private party, depends what it is. Some things get listed that are open for the public and others don't. But occasionally the libraries will charge a fee, and you do have to register through that library's website.
Jessica, we want to thank you for being with us today and let our audience again know that our guest has been Jessica Alexandrakis. She is the founder of Life Under Quilts, and she's been telling us today all about what Life Under Quilts is like. And thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much, Bill and Stacey.
I'm Bill Horan. I'm here with Nassau Community College student Stacey Rain. We thank you for listening to this week's episode of My Hometown.
We like to get your feedback on My Hometown. Send your comments to whpc@ncc.edu. Nassau Community College, where success starts and continues. Till next time, this is Bill St. James. And remember, there's no town like your hometown.